Hey everybody, welcome back to Marketing Tips, Tricks, and Insights with Scott Berg. Today we're going to talk a little bit about something called remnant media. And remnant media is just like what it sounds. It is media that is left over. Media itself is a perishable asset. So, for instance, when you see a pod of commercials being played at 10 minutes after the hour on television, right? Typically, there's three spots that run during that particular time. If the media companies only sold two of those spots, one of them goes empty and it's perishable, goes away, can't bring time back. So, given things are perishable, they would rather get some money versus no money for the media that they have. Now, it's last minute advertising space, okay? So you have to keep that in mind. It's stuff, again, that hasn't been sold in the marketplace. You can get, though, a huge discount on this type of media. So, for instance, on television, advertising, in some cases on cable television, I was getting a 90% discount off of an ad, and it would be running maybe tomorrow. Or tomorrow night, or in the next day or whatever. It depends on the location of the spot itself, the time of the day, the programming, a whole host of different things. But needless to say, you can get it at a significant decrease because, again, they'll take any dollars versus no dollars at that point in time. It is available with most types of media: TV, radio, print, digital. You can even get it for sponsorships, etc. So it's a great opportunity to purchase media at a discount. Few opportunities for you. Again, television, radio, as I mentioned, typically you can get about a 90% discount sometimes. Sometimes that is, on the high end. Sometimes you're looking at 50%. But needless to say, you're able to get it at a much lower price. Typically, your agencies, media agencies, will know how to negotiate this type of stuff. And they may be actually buying it for you today. You could actually get into some high value programs with this. Some can be a very large audience. So, for instance, if somebody has to drop out of the Academy Awards, for instance, and they're dropping out, a week in advance, and they've got that spot for sale. They may be willing to take a discount on that. It's probably not going to be a 90%, I guarantee you that, but they may be able to take maybe a 10% off, 15% off to be able to sell that particular piece of property as well. So you can sometimes get a really large audience. But most of the time, you're going to get a very, very target audience. It's going to be much, much, much smaller. So it's probably going to be cable TV types of shows that are out there. Late night types of television, possibly. A lot of this you see as examples would be a lot of the car insurance companies, a Geico, Progressive. It seems like you see those ads constantly on every single channel. A lot of the time, they may be purchasing remnant media and getting it at a huge discount, and then measuring the response associated with that particular ad overnight or during the time period that they've run it in. You can align sometimes to some really unique programming and content. A lot of times, in the way that I've always used remnant advertising for the most part, has been for demand generation marketing. Basically, where I'm saying, hey, go ahead and call me and buy, or go on my website right now and buy the product itself. I like to use it for metrics-driven types of campaigns where, again, I may be running the advertisement at X time, and then I'm able to measure very quickly the number of calls that the call center received, the number of those that actually transacted into sales. Perhaps it's actually the amount of web traffic has increased relative to when the spot actually ran. But that allows you to really determine whether or not it was valuable for you to purchase that particular piece of inventory itself. As it relates to outdoor, you can also do some stuff with signs that outdoor signs that haven't been purchased, right? And you'll see these along the highway where they say does advertising work, and they'll say it just did. something along those lines where they're trying to promote the board itself. If these boards have been empty for months, some of them, sit there for years, you can probably get a pretty good deal on something along those lines. And those may be just for maybe it's a release of a new product. Or maybe it's a Christmas type of an inventory that you're trying to call attention to maybe some Christmas products that you might have. But typically I've used those as short bursts, maybe only 1 month where I've used them and had effective campaigns with them. Print, it's available, but keep in mind that print performance has gone down dramatically, but it still is out there. Online is typically managed via network site or a centralized buying system. You can buy it, get a cheaper CPC on it, but a lot of times those CPCs are not guaranteed in the marketplace. And so you're kind of buying and hoping that you get what you get. Also, with a lot of the other remnant, especially a lot of the television and radio, they're not going to guarantee any of those types of audience levels. You're just buying and running. But there's some issues with remnant. So again, everything sounds great, but there are some big issues with remnant. If it gets out there, you could get into a potential bidding war where maybe you purchase the spot and then somebody else comes in and says, hey, guess what? I'll give you another $20, to the media company. A lot of times they'll dump you and take the other $20. So you have to be cognizant of that. Decision timing. I mean, when they call, boom, you got to make a decision right then. So you need to make sure that you have available creative and content available. Sometimes the visibility for these particular initiatives isn't very high as it relates to the amount of audience that you get. So you have to be cognizant of that. And then, as I like to refer to it, as crap inventory. A lot of times they're just trying to dump stuff that nobody would buy on the face of this earth. And with that, that causes problems. Let me give you an example. So a lot of times I used to get, and actually still do, would get a call from somebody who's putting together a program, and thick program type of an advertisement or something along those lines, or a big magazine, and somebody's dropped out. And they call me and they go, hey, guess what? You can buy that advertisement for 50% off. I'll give you a deal, 50% off. A lot of people will say, oh, great, I can get into that publication. Here's where the challenge is. You're running one ad. It's not part of a campaign. You're just dropping your stuff in there. They're just trying to basically get ink on a page. That's all they're trying to do. And so they'll give it to you at a really, really deep discount. Again, you need to think of remnant inventory as an extension to your current advertising and marketing, not as a one-time deal. Okay, it doesn't do you any good to just buy a spot in a one-time deal. Okay, you've got to think about this from an overall perspective of your marketing itself, and it allows you, when you're starting to drive marketing. Okay, cut here. And sometimes, let's talk about how. Okay, so here are the things that I don't use remnant for. Again, as I mentioned, and we just finished, don't buy it for one-off ads on radio, television, etc., unless it happens to be a big program that you can get, like the Academy Awards or something like that. That's going to be extremely rare. But sometimes if you have some really neat creative, that may be an opportunity to do that. I like to refer to those as really one and done. I don't buy sponsorships. Typically, those are watered down sponsorships, and you're basically getting an ad in a program, as I mentioned earlier. And if you're going to be doing sponsorships, you probably want to have a fully immersive experience, and you're not going to be able to typically buy one of those. And if you do buy it, it's going to be scaled down. And number three, how are you going to execute on that? I don't use it to burn excess budget. A lot of people will use it to do that. Again, it's wasting dollars. And I don't believe in wasting marketing dollars, so I never have used it to burn marketing budget at the end of the quarter. So, okay, now you've decided I'm interested in Remnant. How do I start to move forward with it? A couple things that you need to do. One, you need to inform your media and ad agency of interest. You always want your agency to field these calls. Again, sometimes you get all hyped up that, hey, I can buy this and I can get it now. Whereas the media agency may be able to even get a deeper discount on it. And if you've got a campaign that's running, they'll be able to determine whether or not it fits that particular marketplace, whether or not it adds any frequency or reach to your campaign itself. I would recommend that you actually build Remnant into your media strategy overall and start to think about it so that you can keep some dollars, say 15% of your total budget, that you would then particularly pitch to companies that you would buy their Remnant at X% discount for these particular types of shows. And so it kind of locks in the Remnant for them. And then some other things that you need to be focused in on if you want to begin to use Remnant is you need to have the creative assets available. This is something that you can't say, hey, give me a week to put some creative together. Typically it's, guess what, I've got the spot. You need to send me over the creative right now. Make sure that you have determined in advance what your metrics are if you're going to be using those for demand generation activities. Don't try to do those on the fly, so have it built in early. You've got to be agile in starting and stopping Remnant. So if you are trying to do it to drive demand and you've put it out there and you've run it for 3 days and it's driving no demand, you need to be able to shut it off, and you shut it off fast. And then develop some Remnant inventory guidelines. You don't want to be running on programming that may be challenging or issue related. It could have sexual content that you don't want your brand associated with. So you want to make sure that you've put those guidelines in there, the time periods that you would like to run. And the other thing that I have done, and I've been somewhat successful at it, is I ensure that when I buy Remnant advertising that I don't have any of my competitors anywhere near my advertising. So for instance, if I was buying television Remnant and it was a 3 commercial pod, I would not have any of our competitors within that pod. Now, a lot of them will say we can't guarantee that. I can guarantee you that if you say that, they'll make sure that it happens. You may have some issues now and again, but I guarantee you they're going to do their best to accommodate you. Okay, that's everything on Remnant. I've included, and you'll find it at the link below, this PowerPoint, which gives you some additional insights on my talking points. Again, I would try Remnant. A great way to extend out your media in the marketplace. Do some unique things. If you would do me a favor, one, leave any comments or suggestions below. Subscribe to the channel, share the video, share the channel with your friends, family, and others, and look forward to talking to you next time. Thanks.